It looked like cheese. It melted like cheese, but it wasn't. And it had no nutritional value at all, or any flavor, which is so weird.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another Friday installment of the Audiophiles. My name's Andy. That's John over there. And as mentioned, it's a Friday episode, so it's an episode dedicated to a song suggested by one of you lovely folks out there in the listening/viewing audience here on YouTube. We poured over this suggestion. I'm familiar with this band because, spoiler alert, it is an artist that I've brought to the channel in the past. So John, not so familiar. So as you can probably quickly do the math there and run the numbers, John's going to be going off and giving this thing a listen. But one of our viewers out there, Yuri2387, suggested on our Far Caspian Blue episode another track by Far Caspian, and that track is These Times. So, John, I imagine that your familiarity with Far Caspian has only increased by one song since before we started our last episode, and that was the song Blue. So, I'm assuming you're still flying quite blind with this group outside of the one track.
Absolutely. And in fact, I struggle whenever I see Far Caspian, I keep thinking it says Fair Caspian. And I picture one of the sort of floppy haired children from the Narnia stories, with a sword belt, for some reason, sort of astride the bow of a tall ship, with the wind in his locks. I don't know why, but Fair Caspian. Um, yeah, Far Caspian doesn't really make any sense to me, but anyway.
Fair. Okay. Well, go off and
Yeah,
see if this track These Times makes any sense to you, and let Yuri and myself and the rest of the gang know your thoughts.
will do.
Tell me if you know, losing time back home. Now I'm getting older. If it's what you like, then I'll go. I'm fine.
It's starting to come back to me now. Um, it's interesting this sort of start. You've got just a single guitar that's being plucked almost hesitantly. It's restrained. Um, and you've got these other sounds, little sort of clicks and bumps. I think I heard a little jangle, like you have like bells or keys on a thing. One of those tinkling noises. And then your man comes in singing. And again, it's like every syllable's a prisoner. He's letting begrudgingly letting go of these words. And it's kind of, come on, deliver it out. You know you want to. Really sort of hesitant. Um, Setting the scene, I guess. Yeah, interesting. Let's see how it goes. Straight away.
All of this is what I thought. Do you crave me when I say I'm all out? Closest thing I've had to.
Okay, that just changed straight away as soon as I was saying about how slow it was. Um, you've now got this beat which kind of sounds to me very sort of that sort of 80s plastic. sound, which isn't always terrible. Quite often was. But it has that sort of drumming that just sounds like it's programmed, really early programmed in. And it does sound really plasticky. Doesn't sound terrible. Uh, and the vocals have gone up quite a bit. I think it sounds like they're kind of like double tracked, where it's just like a gnat's breath delay one with the other, so it just sounds like it. But those two things to my ears are just making the vocals more ineffectual. I'm not even inclined to listen to it. But the guitar, that's another matter. I think I remember this from before. This sounds like that sort of guitar melody. Sounds like they've got a Smiths track, a wonderful Smiths track in the lab or somewhere, held it down and with some scientific equipment have extracted part of the guitar melody. Because quite often the very wonderful Johnny Marr, it sounds like there's 2 or 3 guitars and stuff, and he did double track some of the stuff, but you see him live and it's the same thing. And this feels like a part of one strand of a Johnny Marr guitar melody that's been extracted, and then it's been brought to this strange place and let loose to go off and live its new life, grow on its own. And it sounds great. It's got all that freedom to it and joy and bounce, and yeah, it sounds wonderful, to be honest with you. Really good stuff. Those chords coming in. I think the bass note is hitting notes just as they go in as well. So it's really full sound. It sounds great. Let me just whizzle it back a little bit. It's around about the minute mark, I think. Let's just bump it up a little bit more. Why not? New Order. Yeah. It's an abrupt ending. Yeah, that was really interesting how it went kind of after those chords came in. For some reason, I don't know if it must be the delivery, but the vocals sounded clearer and you could make out what they were saying. And then we got this sort of like, it was like an early New Order program, sort of like toy soldier drumming. And there's a little bit of bass that went a bit hooky as well. Um, and then when it came back, the vocals seemed much sort of airy and light. And again, it was just sound noise to me rather than words. And I wasn't really inclined to listen to that much as background. The guitar, it was getting peak Smiths, peak Johnny Marr, sounded lovely. It brought a little bit of joy in, which is what Smith's tracks always did for me when I first listened to them. And that guitar, especially, is just joyous. It's when people always said, "Oh, I can't listen to Smiths because it's so depressing." But for me, it was uplifting always, pretty much always. So yeah, and then it's just sort of like petered out, and it's very weird, sort of bit of a spazzy sort of beat at the end, and then it just stopped. So yeah, really interesting. I found the vocals either ineffectual / annoying. Yeah, I guess that's just me. There'll be people who love this and find the vocals, endearing or immediate or whatever. But no, I think if this had been an instrumental, I'd have really liked this track a lot. I did like it, but there was bits in it that annoyed me. I have to say I have to be honest. But yeah. So let's go back with Andy and get more about the band again and about this track and what's it all about. Let's chop it up with Andy.
Right, so you've returned from your adventures aboard the far Caspian. Let us know your thoughts on it, my friend.
So a gentle thrum from the guitar opens the track, and then we get some strange little noises that, if they were a Stereo Lab album, would be called clicks and bumps. Um, there's this sort of like, you wonder if it's somebody trying to escape very gently from their Perspex prison cell, tapping away. And there's also some sort of weird bumping. It makes me think it's a proper instrument, like a drum kit. Maybe not. And also there's like a little jangle from, I don't know if it's like, bells or just a set of keys. But it's something, it was all very sort of like low down. Anyway, your man, the vocalist, joins the fray, and suddenly it all comes flooding back to me what I thought about off my first dalliance with this outfit. I remember from Far Caspian Blue. I really like the guitar. I thought the overall sort of dreamy pop sound was okay, and I didn't go a blast for the vocal part, particularly how it sounded. Um, yeah, this does nothing to change my mind. It's absolutely
Very
reinforced
similar experience.
all of it. Yeah. Now, there will be viewers or listeners who find the vocal track to this to be intimate or even immediate. Not me. My gut reaction to this sort of sound, this sort of vocal, is it's kind of like a slice of processed cheese.
Mhm.
It's that ubiquitous orange quadrilateral on top of burgers everywhere, where it does a job. But imagine if it was something real instead, with flavor like cheddar or the complexity of cocktails or blue cheese. So I really struggle to connect with it or enjoy it. In fact, it even reminds me of there was a program a few years ago which went into the details of things that you eat. And it turns out that some of the supermarkets in this country were putting stuff into their home or shop made pizzas that was cheese substitute. It looked like cheese, it melted like cheese, but it wasn't. And it had no nutritional value at all, or any flavor, which is so weird. And the Greeks have a word for this, and they call it halloumi. Anyway, so the first verse, our protagonist ekes out the words very slowly, almost begrudgingly, as if it was painful to release each syllable. And it reminds me of a guy I met up in Scotland. And when he was the boss of this company, when he went out, his foreman said, "Don't mind him. It's just with him, every penny's a prisoner." And it felt like every syllable was a prisoner for this guy. And he's like, "Tell me if you know losing time back home." I feel like I'm listening to one of those people who deliberately speak quieter to funnel the attention in the room to themselves. And I am slightly annoyed by this delivery, as you can guess. But luckily, it doesn't last.
You cited that comparison before in the past as being extremely annoying too. The person who talks quietly as to draw more people's attention. Yeah.
Yeah, I still dislike that person. Um, so what is doing this? The guitar mimics the vocal track, and it has this kind of described as a restrained or throttled picking. So he's kind of doing stuff, but you know that both the vocalist and the guitar is capable of expanding out. And after the words "I'm fine," which are always passive aggressive, the beat kicks in and we are ponderous no more. Hallelujah. The rhythm section, when in this next sort of bit, does sound a little bit sort of 80s plastic fantastic. But it's not always a bad thing, it can be quite endearing. And of course, I grew up listening to that stuff, so it's not so much a shock to me. But it does sound like really early programming, particularly the beats. The vocals leap up an octave or so, and I believe they're double tracked. It's that one where you just overlap, so there's a tiny bit, so it gives it a bit of extra to it. But for me, it also, with the sort of the raising up, it makes it slightly more ineffectual to me, and definitely harder to discern the actual words, and easier to ignore or zone out, because there's something much more interesting going on. The guitar line, which I started to remember from the previous episode. The guitar line has this lovely jangly sort of flow and energy of early Johnny Marr. Often listening to his wondrous sounds, you swear there's two or three guitars playing at once, and sometimes he has overdubs, but or double tracks. But when you see him live, the same sound, and here it sounds like they've managed to strap down a section of Johnny Marr's guitar music onto some sort of operating table in a mad laboratory, and manage by science to remove one part of the whole melody and take it away. It's been biopsied, and then this strand of melody still wriggling, they've now let loose free into this song, and it's running wild to form a new life of its own. It sounds really great. It really does. And then just after the minute mark, in comes these extra gorgeous chords that add so much to the track. And I kind of struggle to put into words how much they do add. It's just fantastic. And I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe the bass is hitting at the same time as these chords. So you've got this sort of, it's almost giving it roots as well to the whole sound. So it just is wonderful. And it really does change so much, because it works wonders on the vocal track. Now, I don't know if they are actually singing clearer or it just makes it seem clearer, but for this verse, the vocals are very clear, and with this foundation, you can make them out. And he says some lines, "In time you'll wander." It did say something else, well, but quick enough to catch it. "Keep moving with the thunder," and something else about hiding in the shadows, and does it feel like it did before? So yeah, it all sounds really great. And then it breaks down to what I call a bit of toy soldier drumming beat. It's like a wind up toy. Again, sounds just like the early programming of New Order, because that's what their beats sound like then. And even the bass does a little sort of flirt with Hookie's sort of high note tone, and then the vocals come back in, and there's some added vocal tones, like some vocalizations and ahs and stuff going on, and sort of renewed gumption to the overall sound. And he says something about craving, but now the vocals are back to sort of peak wishy-washiness in terms of how they're sitting within the music, and I'm not really getting it. So in contrast with the music, they become weaker in their effectiveness to me as the guitar shines, and it sort of bobs and threads its melody like a seahorse swimming in moonlit waters. Just really, really nice. And then it sort of all comes down, and we get this kind of weird, bumpy little beat, and then it finishes suddenly. So yeah, I'm not as Scooby as what was going on in this in terms of lyrically or the narrative or whatever. But I would say I love the music of this to bits. I thought it was great. And I'll say that if this song had been an instrumental, I would have not been disappointed whatsoever. Um, the vocals just if it was a less of a song musically, it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't. I wouldn't have. It would have annoyed me as much. But because I think the guitar and the music was so nice, they annoyed me a bit more than they would have done normally. So there you go. That's it. But yeah. Vocals aside, I thought the rest of it was just fabulous.
Excellent. I'm glad you liked it. And hey, we all have our
Yeah.
idiosyncrasies with what we like in vocal delivery and sound and style and all that fun stuff. But I do think that you're right. From a music standpoint, it's kind of undeniable how lovely this thing kind of unfurls over time, over the length of the song, which isn't very long, but it's still it's interesting for how short it is, how much evolution there is in the sound from A all the way to B at the end there. And I always enjoyed that aspect of the song the most anyway. Not that I have nearly as much issue with the vocal delivery as you. I don't think you can argue that the shining star of this track is what I just described with the music. It's just lovely. So I'm really glad you liked it. I'm sure Yuri is too. I don't know. I can't say how much Yuri is a fan of the vocals or not. So you may have to deal with their wrath when this posts. But I kid. Yeah, Far Caspian is a band headed by Irish musician and producer Joel Johnston, and its
Otherwise
foundations.
known as Yuri. No, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And the foundations of the group were built in Johnston's university halls. Um, the members of the band right now of Far Caspian are Joel Johnston, singer, songwriter, guitarist, producer, multi-instrumentalist. Joff Sabedo or Cabedo, not sure how Joff pronounces his surname, on drums and vocals, and Alessio Scazzaro on bass and vocals. God, I love the way that name rolls off the tongue. Uh, Johnston's lo-fi sound was picked up by blogs such as Indie Shuffle and The Lazy Lazy Me. Since graduating, Johnston has called on Alessio and Joff to turn his bedroom sound into something a bit bolder. Anchored by the Leeds-based Ireland-born musician's dogged attention to detail, Johnston writes records and mixes everything himself. His music consistently feels like its own self-contained world, full of densely packed hooks and guitar-based atmospherics. And I would definitely say that, yeah, the densely packed hooks and guitar-based atmospherics were on display on this track. Now, as a band, they're crafting their new sound as they play shows in the UK, including live at Leeds, Gold Sounds Festival, and Leeds Festival. Following the release of their debut EP, and I think this is debut on a actual label because there was stuff preceding this that he was just releasing independently. In fact, I think Blue fell under that category where it was something that he had just released. Probably some of the stuff that caught the attention of those bloggers that I just mentioned a moment ago. But their debut EP officially on a label was called Between Days. And the band has been backed by the likes of KCRW's Jason Bentley, Dork Magazine, and BBC Introducing. As mentioned, we previously listened to that track Blue off the band's 2015 demos release, which is, again, that independent thing. And this track, offered up by Yuri, features on the band's 2009 EP, Far Heights. The EP sits at an aggregate score of 77 out of 100 based on 41 different user reviews on the website Album of the Year. According to Johnston, most of the EP was recorded in his bedroom, which is on brand for the artist. The only exception was the drums, which were recorded in the basement of the same house. He actually had mentioned in the same interview that they had conducted a decent amount of it in the studio, but the band just didn't like the sound, and maybe like think it lacked what they thought was the intimacy that it needed, and that's why they went back to recording it the way they'd done everything else, which was just like in the confines of this house, which is really interesting, but I kind of dig it. Johnson also noted in an interview that I was going through a lot of stuff when writing and recording the first EP, whereas when it came around to this one, I was in a much better mindset. Lyrics usually come to me on the spot as opposed to sitting down and trying to come up with something. So I suppose it is a good reflection of how I was feeling in that moment. Discussing the themes of the EP, Johnston would offer, the themes on the EP are about embracing the present and enjoying the good times you have, even if you're struggling through something else. From writing and recording this project, we went from a pretty dark place into a place of contentment. And I feel that like the tracks have that feeling within them. And per Adrian Vargas of Atwood magazine, The Heights sees Far Caspian combine their signature bedroom pop rhythms with dreamy and engaging electronic synths to create an experience that is wholly new. Whereas Between Days explored dark themes and insecurities, The Heights was an air of joy, has an air of joy around it. And each track encapsulates that feeling of mirth gorgeously. Adding These Times takes a slower approach at first, building up to a crescendo of instrumentation that dances around the listeners with its euphoric soundscape. So let's jump into these lyrics, many of which you either blocked out by choice or didn't understand because of how they were recorded. Uh, Tell me if you know, losing time back home. Now I'm getting older. If it's what you like, then I'll go. I'm fine. Do I, passive aggressive, I'm fine. Uh, do I crave it when I'm feeling low? All of this is what I thought. Do you crave me when I've slowed? I'm all out. The closest thing I felt to whole, my love. In time you'll always wonder, does it mean you'll ever wish to come home? Keep moving with the thunder. These times are why we feel like we're close, hiding in the shadows. Does it feel like it did before? Old times, you've always had those. When it spins, put your feet on the floor, crawling back to you. Do I crave it when I'm feeling low? All of this, what I thought. Do you crave me when I've slowed? I'm all out. The closest thing I felt to whole, crawling back to you, like I always do, falling back into, like I always do. So while the lyrics are explicitly about feeling hurt, the music's soaring euphoric soundscape provides this cathartic and uplifting experience, making it easy to lose yourself in that melody. Also, worth mentioning, the band released their most recent album, Autofiction, this year. So if you like what you heard, or at least facets of it, that and you want to hear more, it's an album worth checking out. And perhaps if I could find a track that I think's vocals are a bit differently delivered than they were on this one, I may bring it to the channel for a future episode, and hopefully John can really hone in on that guitar work. So perhaps we'll be hearing more from Johnson and Company on the channel at a later date. But John, really appreciate you giving this one a spin, as I'm sure Yuri does as well. So thanks, buddy.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Excellent. And Yuri, thank you for finding a reason to bring Far Caspian back to the channel. It was a pretty good hit with John. I mean, the vocals notwithstanding, vocals outstanding, the guitar work and the way the music, the whole thing was kind of constructed and delivered was beautiful. So this is a really great track by them. So thanks again, Yuri. And guys out there in the listening audience, please let Yuri and us know what you thought of this track, These Times by Far Caspian. If there's anything else by them that we should check out, or if there's any other band or song that you would like us to give a listen to, please feel free to drop it down in the comments field below. So long as at least one of us isn't familiar with it, the song will make the cut. If we both are, then what's the point, right? So please feel free to give them a shout in the comments field below, or any comment field on any of our previous episodes or future ones. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. Really does help us a lot over here at the channel. We appreciate you taking a couple seconds out of your time to not only check out this or any other episode, but to hit that like or the bell icon and all the other gadgets down there. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audio Files. We'll see you later, guys.